Hi friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be part of a cookbook collaboration, and it is hosted by Tamara from Southern Wife Everyday Life. I will leave a link in the description box down below to her channel, as well as a link to the playlist, so go ahead and check out that to see all the other lovely ladies and what they made for you. This idea from Tamara is super cool because you get to go ahead and use recipes that are from cookbooks instead of, going online, which I'm pretty guilty of because I don't have a lot of cookbooks. I just don't have the space for them at the moment. So I had to go, I typically borrow them from like a friend or a family member, but I went to my local library, which turns out to be a great place to find some because I found lots of great ones, and I saw this one called Five Mary's Ranch Raised Cookbook, and as soon as I saw it, it drew me in. Like, it just looked beautiful. So I went and started looking at the photos, and they were stunning, so that caught my eye. And then I started looking at all the recipes. So many amazing things that I cannot wait to make for you in other videos here, but I'm making 3 from this one today, and let's just get to it. I'm just going to give y'all a quick glance at this cookbook. It's beautiful. The photography is really good in this. I know you're not just in there for like all the photographs. Maybe you are. I really like that part of it all. But it's really stunning. This looks delicious. But anyways, so there's so many things from breakfast, lunches, like appetizers, drinks. But I'm going to be making this Cowboy Chili, and it was a huge hit with us. And then a good way to use up your leftover chili, I saw this recipe and thought it was really cool. I wanted to make it as well because I knew we'd be left like with leftovers for sure. And so you could always just freeze this up. They'll freeze up your chili, and when you need a quick meal, just pull out that chili, defrost it, heat it, and then you could make that new meal out of it by making the mac and cheese. And then I had to go ahead and of course make the skillet cornbread with that and that honey butter. It was absolutely delicious. So let's get to showing you these recipes. To start off, I'm going to go ahead and dice up my vegetables. So the recipe calls for 1 medium red bell pepper diced up, and then 1 small green bell pepper diced as well. And it calls for 1 medium yellow onion finely chopped. So I went ahead and did all of that. And I'm using my Dutch oven for this, but you can use a large pot if that's what you have. And I have that over medium heat, and I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil to that, let that heat up, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in those diced up vegetables, and we're just going to go ahead and stir those around, get them a little bit coated in that oil. And I went ahead and added a pinch of salt here during this process, and I went ahead and just let those cook, and they're going to brown. They said it takes about 8 minutes, and it was around that amount of time. And you're just going to let those just cook down, get nice and browned. And after that, you're going to go ahead and increase your heat to medium-high, and you're going to need 2 pounds of ground beef. The recipe also recommends ground chuck or sirloin. I just had ground beef, so that's what I'm using. And just go ahead and add that into the pot with your vegetables. And I'm using my meat chopping tool here. I'm just going to kind of break that apart. Mine was defrosting, so it had little bits that were a little still firmer and frozen in the middle, but it's no big deal here. So I'm just going to break that all apart, spread it out mostly to the bottom of the pan there, and I'm gonna let that set for a moment and just kind of brown up. And then I'm just gonna continue to let that cook, as well as break it up along the way because I don't like large chunks of meat. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in a 1/4 cup of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, a teaspoon of ground coriander, and 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. And we're also going to add in, it calls for 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. I added closer to 1 whole teaspoon, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And then just go ahead and stir that all together, and we're going to get that nice and combined, let those seasonings become nice and fragrant. And if you have too much grease in your meat, now's the time to go ahead and drain that. And then you're going to take a can of pinto beans that you've rinsed and drained. This is about 30 ounces of pinto beans. I stirred it around because I like more beans, and I was checking to see if I maybe want to add an extra can in there. And then I'm adding in a 28 ounce can of crushed tomatoes and a 15 ounce can of diced tomatoes. And then I'm using that can with the tomatoes for the 1 cup of water to get that extra flavor out of the can. I want all that flavor, so I'm putting that in there. Just going to go ahead and give that all a good stir. And now we're just going to go ahead and let that come to a boil. We're going to go ahead and reduce that heat to low and let this go ahead and just simmer and cook for about an hour, and your chili is going to get nice and thick. And while that chili's cooking, I'm going to get started on the honey butter and the cornbread. So for the honey butter, I'm just combining in a bowl 1 stick of softened butter, and it says unsalted. I only had salted, so I'm just using my salted butter, and I'll omit the salt that they add into it. And to that, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of honey. See, I have an issue with my honey right now. It was crystallized, so I had to melt some in the microwave to get it nice and able to use in this. And so I over poured on that, and it's okay though, it tastes delicious. So it also melted my butter a bit because I wasn't waiting for it to cool. But I mixed that all together, got it nice and smooth, and let me tell you, this is really, really good. And then I just stuck that in the refrigerator while I was working on that cornbread. So for my cornbread, I don't have a skillet that is a 10-inch one, so I had to use a baking dish. I'm just using this square baking dish, and I'm coating it with some butter there. And then to a bowl, I am combining 1 cup of cornmeal with 1 cup of flour and a 1/4 cup of white sugar, and then 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt. I don't have kosher salt, so I'm just using the pink Himalayan here. And then I just use my whisk to go ahead and combine all those ingredients. And then I'm measuring out 1 cup of whole milk, and to that same glass measuring cup here, I'm just gonna mix these wet ingredients. So I'm gonna add in 2 large eggs, and then I use my fork to just kind of whisk those together before adding the butter in. It's just something I like to do. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add in 6 tablespoons of melted butter and combine it again. And now we're just going to go ahead and add that wet mixture right into our dry mixture bowl, and I'm just going to go ahead and mix it all together until it's all combined. We're not going to overly mix this, but just till combined, and make sure to scrape down your sides. And then we'll just go ahead and pour that right into the baking dish that has been prepared with some kind of grease or butter, something like that. And then we're going to go ahead and bake that at 425 degrees for about 17 minutes. Now, because I am using this glass or ceramic pan versus like a metal cast iron pan, that did increase my baking time by up to 5 minutes or so. I just kept an eye on it at that 17-minute mark and just watched till it was nice and golden brown on top. And there's a little view of that chili in the pot there. We really absolutely loved this chili. It was so delicious. I put sour cream and cheese and some green onions. There's that cornbread with the honey butter. That honey butter was so delicious. I've only made cornbread from scratch a couple times, and I never really cared to go back to it. I always stick with Jiffy, but wow, it was so good, and we just absolutely love this whole meal. Okay, so for this, I'm starting off with a large pot of salted water that I brought to a boil, and I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 pound of elbow macaroni, and I'm using a large macaroni. I don't like the smaller kind, and I just gave that a quick stir, and I'm cooking to al dente. Then I drained that pasta, and I rinsed it with some cold water. Now to that same pot, I'm adding in 5 tablespoons of butter, and then once it's melted, I'm adding in a 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, and I'm just adding that in slowly and whisking, and we're just kind of making a roux here at this point. And I do this for about a minute or so to make sure to cook out that raw flour taste. And then we're going to go ahead and take 3 1/4 cup of whole milk, and I'm just going to go ahead and start to pour that in, and I'm doing this slowly. I want to make sure to keep whisking and keeping this as smooth as possible. And yeah, just go ahead and continue to add your milk a little at a time. Do whatever works for you, of course. If you need to go faster, you're used to going faster, go for it. I always have to do it slowly, especially because I'm not just going to be using a blocked cheese. I have to use a bagged cheese because it's just what I have, and I want to use it up. So it's already going to have that, powdered coating that's going to make it a little harder for me to make it super creamy. And here's my cheese, and I thought I showed you a clip of what it was, but it's just the Tillamook. I think it's sharp white cheddar that I'm using here, and I'm using 8 ounces of it at first, and I'm just stirring that in. I'm just using my spoon. You can use a whisk as well. I just never like to clean cheese out of whisks if I don't have to, so I'm using that spoon. And then I'm adding some black pepper to that, and I didn't salt it at this point yet. I was gonna wait till the end and kind of taste it. I did end up using some salt in the end though. And I did taste this, and it just needed more cheese for me. So I had another open bag of the same white cheddar cheese. So I just went ahead and was adding a little at a time and adding salt and pepper and just tasting along the way to see what I thought I would like for a sauce, and until I got it perfect. So I'd say I use another good 4 or 5 ounces of that white cheddar. And then go ahead and add your pasta back into that cheese sauce there and give it all a good stir. At this point, I still needed some more pepper. Like, I love black pepper in my macaroni and cheese, especially when it's like a white cheddar mac and cheese, which is actually one of my favorites. This macaroni and cheese alone was just, I could eat it right there out of the pot. It was so good. But now I'm taking a 9x13 baking dish that I put a little grease on the bottom, and I went ahead and added 4 cups of chili to the bottom of that and spread into an even layer. And now I'm just pouring that mac and cheese right on top of it, and I'm also just going to go ahead and press that out, spread it into an even layer. And we're just going to go ahead and bake this at about 400 degrees for about 20 minutes, or until the top is nice and browned and bubbly. I may have put it for an extra couple minutes. Just depends on your oven. And look at that, it looks so beautiful. It was so good. So I like mac and cheese, but baked mac and cheese is good and all, but I love creamy, and it's just crazy to say that I would have preferred just eating that creamy mac and cheese right on top of it. It didn't even need to get baked for me. But of course this was delicious because already that chili was the base of it, and it was phenomenal. So you add mac and cheese on top and I'm definitely sold. And I had some leftover of that cornbread. I just reheated it, added some more of that honey butter. It wasn't as fresh, but it was still delicious. If you know a great way to reheat cornbread, go ahead and leave that in a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell. And don't forget to check out Tamara's channel as well as the playlist for all the other lovely ladies videos. And I hope you all are having an amazing day.